Welcome to Patty's Aquatics, and today what we're going to do is talk about tank maintenance within a dirted aquarium. Now, some people don't do anything with their dirted aquariums. They let them grow and go, while other people on the exact opposite end may keep up with trimmings and do everything necessary to make it look as presentable as possible. And then there's people that lie in the middle. So today what I'm going to do is show you exactly what I do within my fish room with my dirted aquariums, and then I'm going to do a little demonstration on this tank here because this tank needs to be trimmed down from that dwarf sage. And we'll talk about all that good stuff from water changes to trimming plants, removing algae, and everything in between. So stick around. So walking into your fish room can be one of two things, knowing that you have to do tank maintenance. It can be stress relieving, knowing you get to come down into your fish room and work on your tanks and play with things, lose your mind a little bit, forget about the real world outside and real world problems and just kind of play around in your fish world here. Or it could be a hassle because maybe it's something you got to do every day, every other day. Maybe it becomes a complete routine that it becomes another job. Well, that could all come down to really what type of hobbyist are you? What type of aquariums do you keep? Most people, if you hear, they say that they have dirty tanks, they'll tell you, I don't really have to do much maintenance. Well, that can be true and that can't be true. It depends on, again, what type of hobbyist are you? Are you someone that doesn't do water changes and just lets their tanks grow and go like I mentioned earlier? Or are you someone that really wants to keep up on your tanks to make sure everything's trimmed all the time and looking proper and neat? So again, it always is going to come back to each individual hobbyist and what really your preference is and what you prefer. Don't look at that. That's an upcoming project. So that's what we're going to get into today. Now, there's a few key points when it comes to maintenance within every tank, but I'm going to single out more for the dirty tanks and the experiences that I've had. Now, one is water changes. That is obviously and can be a very controversial subject. Now, with water changes, do you need to change your water in your aquariums when it comes to these dirty tanks? Again, I'm going to set that right back to you and every individual hobbyist on what you're thinking and what you want out of your hobby and what you want out of your tanks. I do water changes, but I don't do them very often. I do them when my plants and my tanks look like they need it. If my plants are looking a little peaked and it looks like, you know what, I can maybe take about 20% of the water out and change it out, then I will. I don't do routine water changes. I don't do them at all. Now, some people don't do water changes at all. They just let it and just do top offs forever. You know, if that's what you want to do and it's working for you, that's perfect. That's not the way I do it. But like I said, I do them, but I don't do them routinely like I used to do years ago when I didn't have dirty tanks. When I had just sand or gravel and a few plants, I would always be doing my water changes like every other week. It became a ritual, and it got to the point where it was like I hated doing them because I was constantly down here doing things. Well, now I kind of wish I had more to do because these tanks are pretty much self-sustaining for the most part, besides feeding them and other things like that. But when it comes to maintenance wise, there's not a lot to do anymore for me in the way I like to keep them. But like I said, water changes is one of the first big things we talk about, and that is, for me, I do them when they need to be done. Now, like I said, every individual hobbyist might be different, but that's the way that I do it. Now, what are the other things to talk about? Now, with water changes and with these dirty tanks, you're going to see this mulm that will, detritus and all this that will collect at the bottom of your aquariums. Do you keep that? Or do you want to gravel vac that out of there? Well, again, this is going to be a common theme in this video. It really depends on each individual hobbyist, really what you're looking for. I can tell you, for me, I don't mind it so much. I don't mind it when it's not that thick. Now, we'll take this tank, for instance, because this is the one we will be trimming a little later. The mulm here is getting a little thick, but this is not thick at all. If it got up to here, yeah, I probably would get rid of it a little, not all the way, because this stuff is really good. There's nothing wrong with the mulm. The mulm in this is all perfect for the shrimps, the microorganisms, the fish. Everything will eat out of it, and it becomes a perfect little platform for the host, basically, for all these things to feed off of and eat out of. So, and as this breaks down and all those organisms and snails and shrimp and everything eat out of it, and it breaks down, it feeds down into the soil, into the sand, through the cap to the soil, and feeds your soil to feed your plants. So there's benefit to it. Now, that being said, if it gets so thick where it's really snuffing out everything, yeah, I don't see a problem with getting rid of some of it. I once in a while will not gravel back, but siphon out some of the stuff in the very front a little bit. I typically don't ever touch the stuff in the back unless, it gets so thick, but that's going to actually turn into like another dirt layer on top of your cap, while some of it will start to work its way down. So as far as mulm, again, completely up to every individual hobbyist what their preference is. Now, another thing we can talk about is algae removal. Now, that can be one thing that we have to see quite a bit in these dirty tanks, depending on how you set yours up. Now, for me, I found that I had the most issues with algae in the very beginning stages of setting them up. That's when I usually found the most algae. I'll have some grow like this on pieces of wood, which I don't mind because that looks quite natural and very cool. But I'll have other tanks like this one over here, for instance, this is my oldest dirty tank. This is about 5 years old. I still get algae in it, but if you can see, I mentioned this in another video, I believe, it shows up underneath the light bar there, where the light is throughout there. It's probably because the light intensity is a little higher there, so it grows. But I don't mind it. I will remove it here and there, but it's a great place for, like I said, little microorganisms and stuff like that to feed off of and live within. And the fish within your aquariums wind up having babies and fry. It's a great place for them to hide into and feed off of. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Now, there's other algae you don't like. Now, we'll go over to my puffer tank here. Now, my puffer tank, once in a while here yet, still gets Sahara algae in there. I pulled some of it out the other day. That's part of the tank maintenance. Now, some of that algae sucks, and it's a constant removal, especially when it gets all wrapped into the plants, and it starts cutting off the light to the plants and all that stuff. If that's happening, there's telling you that there's some other underlying issue within your aquarium, which is typically it's just not balanced yet, or there's something just off balance. And I have been struggling with this puffer tank for a year now with trying to get it settled with that and cyanobacteria. The cyanobacteria has gone away, but I am still, I wouldn't say struggling with this algae anymore. It's still there a little bit, but it's nowhere near what it used to be. And it is much better. And I just want the plants to really start taking off more now. They've just been there in this tank. They haven't like thrived, like I said, and I'm hoping that'll change soon. But algae with that, like I said, that's one thing to really keep in mind, is that is one thing that you will have to probably remove. Now, I know there are people that do different things. I believe like the father fish supplements that they put into their soil, there are some things in there that might try to help to prevent that algae some more. And there's other people that do all different things in order to try to help prevent it. And that's definitely things to look into with research. But the way that I do it, I get algae in most of my tanks. It's usually in the beginning, but once it's gone, it's usually gone. But next thing up is going to be that plant trimming. Now, plant trimming is just a necessity when it comes to dirty tanks. Well, because dirty tanks makes plants grow so well. Take this tank, for instance. You can't see it through the glare. All my plants in here need to be trimmed down as well and replanted down in. So what happens, like in this tank, this is a taller one, and I'm sorry about all the glare here. It's hard to do this while I'm walking around and talking. The plants grow so tall that the light doesn't get to the bottom of them, if you notice that in your tanks, and then you start to get more stems. So what I do is I'll constantly trim the tops off, replant them down so it stays thick down within the base of the plant layer, and then they can keep growing up. So, all right, then as far as plant trimming, that's where we're going to get to this tank. I'm going to show you a little demonstration of what I'm going to do. But with this tank itself, we can break down some of those components and show you real life what I really do with one of these aquariums. Now, start off with all those different components I talked about. I'm not doing a water changing here. The most I'm going to do is probably top it off when I'm done. Secondly, the mulm, like I said, I showed you it all in here. You can see perfect examples like the shrimp in there eating throughout it. They'll eat everything in there. You'll see the fish down there eating, the snails, everything going in and around all of this, and they eat all of that, break it down more, and that is such a nutrient rich layer on there with so many benefits from it. So like I said, I don't mind this mulm. It just, if it gets way too thick, then I might cut it back a little bit. Now, algae. Algae I really don't battle in this aquarium anymore. I used to get it thick, 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 way in the back. I'd have to remove it all the time. That has gone away. Like I said, it's just a matter of patience and time of really waiting out some of these tanks sometimes. And that I use that word balance a lot within a lot of my videos, but it truly is the case. You really need them to balance out. Now, the next thing up is really the plant trimming, and that's the main focal point with this aquarium right now. Now, the thing that I suffer mostly in this aquarium is I have guppy grass in here. This is the first tank I ever introduced it to, and it's become a thorn in my side because I can never get it out of here. There's always little fragments of it that keep growing, and it gets so thick in here. I pulled a few handfuls out of here probably like a couple days ago, and it's already starting to come back. And the dwarf sage in here is very thick as well, growing all the way to the front and getting thick. Now, I like the look of it, but when that guppy grass grows in so thick as well, it really becomes harder for these fish really to swim around. And it's harder to feed because it's all so thick. All the guppy grass or all the dwarf sage is all laying on top of each other on the top of the water. And it's really hard to get food down in there. And so what I want to do is I'm going to pull some of this out of here in the very front to open this up a little bit. And then I'm going to take my little scissors and then I'm going to trim the tops off of everything else in here to kind of maybe get it down to around this layer. So we got about an inch, inch and a half below the water surface. Then it can grow back up. And that's going to help me as well because I am trying to get rid of duckweed within my aquariums here. And by having nothing at the top of the water, it's going to be easier to scoop it out. So that's what we're going to do. So first things first, let me get this thing on a tripod and I'm going to try to pull some of this out of there for you and show you a little technique that I do to not pull up all the soil with it. All right, so what I'm going to do is show you exactly how I pull one of these out. Now, I just pulled one out, but apparently I didn't hit record. That is why there's a spot missing there. So I'm going to pull one of these other ones out, and I'm going to show you exactly how I do it. Now, some of this mulm will kick up, and that's going to happen. But what I do is basically get your hand down in there and you want to grab it as far down to the base as you can. And you just want to slowly turn it so that soil can, or the sand can backfill back into that hole without letting soil up. And just like that, it comes out without bringing any soil. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to try to get that all out of the front. What I can do is show you the one I did pull out that didn't record with the roots down this far. I mean, that definitely was into the soil, and I didn't pull any soil up from the substrate. So like I said, slowly turning around like that and slowly working its way up so that sand can backfill into the hole is the key. So let me pull some of this stuff out of here and then we'll go over the trimming. So I got it all pulled out from the front that I want to and let that grow thicker in the back is what I prefer. So that obviously, as you can see, all the mulm and everything got kicked up from that. That's completely normal. It will settle down again. So the next thing up and now is, like I said, is I want to trim the tops of that a little bit to give myself some clearance from the top of the water. So what I do with that is I just take my good old scissors here and I just go through and just trim the tops. Like I just said, I'll just go through and it's like you're cutting hair, go over the top. I'll do the entire thing like that. And then I'll take a little net and scoop out all the clippings. And then from that, you're good to go. Now, you 100% can trim dwarf sage, Vallisneria. I do have a video out on it from a long time ago, which I'll link up here. So this is a plant that keeps growing and growing. So you 100% can trim off the tops and it keeps growing. It's just like hair or like grass. So it's like cutting the grass, basically. You're trimming it down to make it down to the layer that you want. And that's what I'm going to do now. So let me do that. Then I'll show you what I did. All right. So I got the trimming all done on this tank. As you can see, I got it all trimmed down about an inch or two from the surface. I do have to top off the water yet, but it does maybe look a little edgy cutty, but that'll go away. That's just the nature of beast. By trimming it, you're never going to get it perfect looking, but that's okay. It'll keep growing back just like grass does. It's a never-ending process. I don't do this very often. I do it just when it gets really thick, because really it snuffs out the light, and it really harms, in my opinion, the light to get down to the substrate layer to really help more plants grow. So I like to open it up. And plus, like I said, it's going to help me get rid of this duckweed a little better. Now, there's all other things in here, like these roots that I pulled up. That's going to work its way back down or just become part of the scenery. And then this mulm and everything will settle down completely, and it will become crystal clear like it was just before. Now, that old saying, clean tank is not always a happy tank, in my opinion. I really believe that a little bit of dirt can go a long way in helping really the overall ecosystem within your aquariums, especially these dirted aquariums, but all aquariums for that matter. A little bit of dirt ain't gonna hurt nothing. There are so much good benefits from it that are within it that can help your entire system, that really, you know, some people can say, I've heard this before, that if you keep a dirted tank and you do little to no maintenance, it's just because you're lazy. Well, there may be a little truth to that, but there's so much more benefit from keeping a tank this way than a clean, pristine tank that's cleaned and maintained like every other day. So, like I said, back to the very beginning, every individual hobbyist has their own wants and needs. This is what I like. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned a little something about the techniques that I use for maintaining my dirted tanks. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button. And I am offering memberships to my channel, so hit that join button if that's something that interests you. And always remember to think outside the box and take a step back into nature. I hope to see you next time here at Patty's Aquatics.